Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Wednesday in the Riv after the big election, or I should say, minuscule election, where virtually
Disappointing.
nobody turned out. So we got a whole bunch of things to talk about. So we have a guest today, so I guess we'll bring him in.
Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Well, good morning, gentlemen. It's a
Good
pleasure to
morning,
be
Jeff.
on.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chip.
We're going to miss your
Well,
comments online. So we'll get them in real life.
yeah, we'll get them in real time now. And I don't have to go like this to try to read them because I have to move the screen so I can get my fat head into the screen. So, but yeah, well, we had an abysmal turnout. I'll start the ball rolling here. It was a disgrace. Um, I mean, this is not the way you run a government, and the result was clear. Um, we got the same old, because the only people that turned out are the people who got paid off, bought off, or are looking for to be paid off, bought off, or are getting rich. We saw we saw Coogan make a statement. This is what happens when you take care of the blue collar. You didn't take care of blue collar, Paul. You took care of the blue collar. The people who work for the city who you gave a job to and giant pay raises are not real blue collar people. Blue collar people are people who work in private industry and are scratching their ass to make a living and pay their rent now. So before I turn it over to you, you know I like quotes, so I had to look up a few. I know a whole bunch of them, but I had to get a couple from some really amazing uh, people who are really political. First of all, Winston Churchill. He said the best argument against democracy is a 5 minute conversation with the average voter. And boy, did that show. And the these people got all the excuses. Oh, it won't do any good. It's not going to do any good. Well, 44,000 people stayed home. So this was not a reading of the people. This was the rich and powerful voting themselves in again. We have 8 councilors again from the rich North End who don't give two craps about the people. And I'll close with one other comment from Abraham Lincoln. Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their back on the fire and burn their behinds, then they will just have to sit on their blisters. And we are going to be sitting on this blister for the next 2 years because these people don't have a clue. I heard the blank space talking about how excited she was. She finished ninth, which wasn't really that great considering the only people that turned out were 60% of them were poorly people, and she got endorsed by him and she barely squeaked in. Everybody else get in fairly. So that they're telling you something, Laura. They don't like your priorities, and you said, "Oh, I'm so excited! I'm so excited! What I can do for the kids and the veterans." Yeah, sounds good on paper. How about the taxpayer? How about the parents of the children that can't pay their rent? How about the veterans that are living out on the street? How about the people who can't survive in this community? This was a disgrace, and you get what you deserve. And I can guarantee you, in the next 2 years, when all this money dries up, the people will finally get engaged. Because I'll remind you, we turned out nearly 17,000 people for the recall. And why did we do that? Because we focused on the people who don't come out and vote. Because if you let the people who always vote, it's basically special interests. So with that, guys, I'll turn it over to you because I mean I'm disgusted. I voted. I got my little vote thing in there. When you talk, I'll go over there and I'll stick it on my forehead. But I voted. Uh, as usual, but it's like shoveling shit against the tide. So with that, back to you guys.
It's very interesting because, we had what, 11,000, what's the exact count? 11,206 people come out to vote out of 55,000 registered voters. Okay, so right there, that tells you that not getting out to vote shows you no excitement. But then again, this entire election was no excitement. No candidate, no matter whether it be city council, school committee, or mayor, brought up any significant issues, discussed any significant issues, or had any fights, no arguments, no disagreements. And that was the worst part about it. The closest we came to was the mayoral quote unquote debates, which I had to joke at because it didn't seem like debates. And Chip, you and I have had this conversation before. Debates in Fall River are useless. Okay? We've reelected all incumbents. You people have bitched, pissed, and moaned about things going on in the city, yet you go back and vote back in Linda Pereira, Brad Kilby, Cliff Ponte, Sean Kadim, Joe Camara, Andrew Raposo, Paul Hart, and Michelle Dion, and Laura Jean Washington. Michelle, I can understand, but the other eight, I can't. They've done nothing to make Fall River better. They've done nothing to make your life easier. They have done nothing to give you a break on your water bills, your tax bills, or anything else. They've just made it difficult for you to live. And in the next 2 years, we're going to listen to you bitch, piss, and moan some more. We're going to listen to you bitch, piss, and moan about your taxes. We're going to listen to you bitch, piss, and moan about your rents because they're going to go up because the taxes are technically going to go up higher than 2.5%. Although with the half truths that Paul will use, he'll say, no, it's only going up 2.5%. But he's not going to say, but I'm no longer giving you the subsidy, which saved you some money on your taxes. He's not going to tell you that he's asking for $1.6 million more on the debt exclusion. Why? We don't know. But he's asking for $1.6 million more. That's $5.2 million. And he won't tell us how much we're paying on the debt exclusion. He refuses to do that. Well, Paul, if this is truly your last term, spread the wealth. Let us all know the shit we're in for. Because you have spread it so far. I mean, when I'm walking through the city, I got weeds growing out of my shoes because there's so much shit to walk through. The fertilizer is very deep. It's interesting.
Well, let me quick before you get on, Jeff. I'll give it back to you. But I gotta, CJ, you let everybody off the hook. You kept saying you voted them in. Well, no, they got the people who they gave jobs to. You know, $19,000 pay raise, $18,000 pay raise for somebody, and then they just happen to be the head of a union that endorsed them. You know, these kind of things. They're gonna come out. You got to understand that. But I don't blame them. They got a vested interest. Just like when Coogan was standing there at the Lady of Light saying, oh, the blue collar crap. Those people aren't blue collar. They're like you. They got a job because they knew somebody, and they'll be collecting a government check for the rest of their life and not performing a damn thing. They'll do nothing and get a paycheck. That's what they're going to do. So they're going to come out to vote to protect their own interest, and you can't blame them. But it's the 44,000 people that didn't come out. It's your fault. Your fault. Last time I checked, 44,000 was substantially bigger than 11,000. And even of that 11,000 votes, not all of them, about 60% went to Coogan and 5,000 to Pereira. All the people they did favors for, all the people they got jobs for, all the people they stuck in the water department, they stuck in City Hall, the people they marched in from Seekonk, and all their friends are telling everybody, vote for them, so we can go back and keep this thing going. You have allowed them to get their wish. They are now going to have another 2 years to take care of that waterfront that they've been coveting for 40 years, and then the shit's going to hit the fan. And when we're out of money and everybody's complaining, it's not the 11,000 who voted, because the ones who voted for special interests, well, that's part of life. We all know that. We're big boys. We've been in this game a long time. We know those political ticks are going to come out and vote. We know they're going to beat the bushes and get everybody they can out to vote. But there's more of us than there are of them. But it's only effective when you show up, like Lincoln said. Now you're going to sit on the blisters on your ass. So with that, Jeff, take it away.
Well, you guys, I've said this yesterday. I said this on Facebook. I'm disappointed in every individual who did not go out and vote. And that's what you said, Chip. Shame on them. I wish if I had the power, I would just take their votes away, because they don't deserve it. I don't know why. Why register to vote when it's not just Fall River? We've also had issues in New Bedford, in Massachusetts votes. New Bedford had about 13% of the voter population went out to go vote. So it's not just Fall River, it's everywhere. And I just don't feel like people just don't give a damn anymore. Unless unless their taxes are going to go extremely high, or rents are going up, or something else, then you won't get people to go out and vote until then. So, because the turnouts I got from 2017, 2019, 2021, 32, 33, 24, 2023, 19, or 20. That's the lowest turnout I've ever seen since I've gotten more into politics here in the city.
Yeah, well, no, you're right, Jeff. Look. Uh, we turned out 17,000 people, and nearly 17,000 for an election with no council race, no school committee race, no go vote for your friends race, mayor, or anything else. Why? Because we targeted the people who normally don't vote. And we're saying shame on the voters. You're right. Oh, a giant, you know, mud pie to them because they get what they deserve. But the reality is that I blame the candidates too. Not one of these candidates took it to the people they needed to take it to. Not one of them did their job. They didn't go after. I didn't see one person going to the United Faith Council, to the Flint Neighborhood Associations, and getting these people who were upset about the lack of affordable housing and creating a network to them to get those people to the polls to show their frustration, to invigorate those people, to anger those people to go and vote. No, mayoral race was a disaster. I've never seen such a disjointed, fragmented campaign as the Sutter campaign. It was a shame. It was a travesty. They got nothing done. All they did was spin their wheels because they don't know how to run campaigns. They don't know how to overthrow governments. You see, they run political campaigns. When you have a city that's got a stranglehold on it by the rich in the North End, 8 councilors now from the North End again, who don't give a shit about you. They don't care about a tax increase. Every one of those bobbleheads on a council now doesn't worry about a tax increase. They got a nice gig in the city council. They can just take some of the city council pin money they get to pay their increase in taxes while you're trying to scratch your ass. And that's the reality of it. They don't care. You think Brad Kilby cares? He's never cared. He spends money like a drunken sailor. Nobody gives a damn about your money and the kind of life you have to live. They're all living in the North End, the Newton of Fall River, and they run the city. And we will let them run it. And those candidates did not take it to the people. Where were the people going to the Portuguese community, reminding everybody that Coogan said you got too many festivals? Reminding him that Mr. Paul Coogan, the guy that said he went to all the homeless camps every day, he goes and he holds their hand and everything else. Yeah, that's the guy that told everybody that disagrees with him to go jump in a lake, that jumped out of his car and verbally assaulted a woman. Yeah, that's the real Coogan. That's the real Coogan. And you put all his henchmen and women in again. So it's on the candidates too. When we ran a recall, we didn't have a dime. And don't tell me you didn't have money, you can't do it. Bullshit. We had a bunch of people that had never been involved in politics before, but they had commitment. And they went door to door. They stood out on the streets. They made noise. They went on Facebook. They called the radio stations. They did what they had to do. But they connected with the people who normally don't get there. And I can guarantee you, when we have a large turnout, you're going to see all these people gone. But I don't think half of them are going to be around. I think people like Linda, when they see the handwritings on the wall after this city crashes and burns, because remember something, people, the people you just reelected didn't even look at the funding of anything in this budget. They didn't even bother worrying about if we got enough money to pay our bills. They didn't care. They did not care. And that's technically illegal because they have a fiduciary obligation, but they didn't do it, and we don't have the money to take them to court. But I'm reminding you all this. This is what you let get in because you wouldn't get off your lazy asses and get to the polls. So with that one, you guys can take it over because I'm getting too quiet now.
You're right, Chip. And my understanding is like, did Paul get enough support more in this election this year? Because when you look at when he first ran, when he said he'll be transparency and not, raise any fees or bring in any fine, but if I'm not mistaken, 2021 he had about 62% and 38% when he first ran. So, and I'm looking at now, he had about like 60. So it's not high or low, but it's average. And again, this is just the people who did not go out and vote. And yeah, shame on some of the other candidates who didn't make no efforts to go around and speak to the people or go to neighborhood associations, because there was only just a very few handful of them. And look, people are busy, but you know what? You want to run for office and represent the taxpayers and the residents of the city. There should be no excuses sometimes. But that's just my opinion. So.
Well, it's not really your opinion, it's a fact. If you look at Coogan's vote total, it's lower than it was last time.
Right.
And that shows that the only people that really came out to vote for him were the people who were connected to him. They've got this cabal that's running the city now. You saw all the people standing behind him, smiling like the cat that just ate the canary. We saw the same old cabal. We saw Carol Fiola. We saw Alan Sylvia. We saw Paul Schmidt. We saw Roderick. We saw them all the politicians, and we saw Kenny Fiola. So we saw all the people that are making all the money from this deal. But he didn't even get as many votes in this election, and virtually nobody turned out. So you look at the percentage he got of people who voted. It's actually, he got lower, and like I said, that demographic will always be there. One thing we knew when we ran a recall: if we got 12,000, 11,000, 13,000, we were gonna crash and burn. But when we saw nearly 17,000, we knew we had a shot. And that's what it was up to those candidates to realize too, but they don't. And it's too bad that these people, don't see the handwriting on the wall, because now, because last year's budget hearing, that wasn't a budget hearing because nobody talked about how we're going to pay for any of this stuff. They didn't even talk about it. So when this shit bites us in the ass, then you're going to see the people get out the pitchforks and the torches, because that's the only time they ever seem to get, because you don't have any candidate that has the wherewithal to go do what you have to do. And I'll remind you again, a few shows ago I talked about the time when John Long Sr. got knocked out after 30 years as a state rep by a guy who worked in a clothing shop and knocked on every door and hit every single door in this area, and he knocked them out. And he was a political unknown. Why? Because he put in the sweat equity. He ran a real, true grassroots campaign, and he went out there to win the hearts and the minds of the people, to coin a phrase from my era. And that's what you got to do, and that's what these people didn't do. And you know, I think most people who can move out of Fall River will, and I feel bad for those who don't. I mean, it's getting to the point where after my entire life I've stayed here and fought the fight, but I'm telling you, when these people, when I start paying more to live in a city that's replete with crime, has a failing educational system, and I can live somewhere else and pay the same amount of taxes or less and have safe streets, clean environment, I may be seriously looking at moving out of this community.
You know, Chip, it's. I think that's the problem, though, in Fall River. I think a majority of people who live here right now, who are starting to get priced out of their homes, and are looking for someplace else to go because, as far as they're concerned, they didn't abandon Fall River. Fall River abandoned them. But I think it's a mutual thing. I think they've abandoned Fall River by not voting, and I think Fall River has abandoned them because they don't vote. They don't care. And this is where we are. I mean, when you look at 11,000 people voting, okay, 11,206 people voting. That's sad. That I mean, you should be ashamed of that. But when you look at the fact that it's the same people in office, the same people, you bitch, piss, and moan that there's been no change in Fall River. Your taxes have gone up. Education is failing. Crime is up. Water is up. Sewer is up. The rainwater tax is up. Everything's up. But these people keep approving it. Okay? Linda Pereira keeps saying she's, for the people. She doesn't want to vote up she doesn't want to vote up the water rates. But then she votes up the water rates. Because she's got an idiot like Leo Pelletier, who thank God is gone, say, well, we need good clean water, so we're gonna have to vote this up. Yeah, we need clean water. Okay? But when you're paying a consultant to run the department who used to run the department before, there's a problem. And don't say it's that we don't have the people to work. Because whether it's we have the people to work or not, it's a problem. We have to recruit people. We have to go out there and get them. And don't give me that we're not giving them enough money. Okay? If they get the job and they're starting here, they may move on because then they can get more money somewhere else. Okay? But if the unions would fight for their employees and their members in a more rational manner, and all you have to do is look at what EMS and the police department did to get the pay raises they got, and they said we need them because we need to pay the officers. Just look at the fact that almost 50% of the current state police candidates school have dropped out in the first 2 weeks. 49% of them were men, 50% were women, or 43% were men, 50% were women. That's a problem. And how did Fall River handle it? They threw money at it, which is what we do with everything. We just throw money at it. There's a problem in the school department. Shelley Perry says, we need more money. Where are we going to get the money, Shelley? That's the question you need to ask. The question isn't, how do we get more money? The question is, where do we get it from? And like you said, Chip, and I've said it myself here, this current budget, the city did not, and I shouldn't say the city council did not look at the revenue stream. They only looked at the expenses. They paid no attention to the revenue. And nobody filed a complaint with the Department of Revenue. And this is why. And let me tell you something. I can only file so many complaints before they turn around and they say, oh, it's this guy again, pain in the ass. Let's not even bother. Okay? Other people have to file the complaints. Other people have to make it known. Okay? You have people like Patrick Higgins who files complaints regularly on open meeting law violations. Okay? And, Mr. Lima, you're right. Taxpayers are the endless supplier to funds for this city because they don't see it. They say, oh, you got $10 left in your pocket? We'll take it. You need $50 for your medication? We'll take that too. The hell with your medication. It's not important. That's what this city thinks. That's the way it is.
CJ, I want to bring up something because I was holding signs yesterday in the beginning of the day, and this lady came driving by, and she said, "Bring back the purple bags. I don't care how much it is." I was, I wasn't going to argue on that type of discussion. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sure right now that the purple bags might come back. I'm saying might. I'm not saying it is, because once the opera fund's gone next year, we're screwed. And how are we going to pay your bills and fees in the city? Watch.
They will be back. You remember, before the opera money came down, they talked about purple bags, trash pickup fees,
Yep.
two partition 2.5 overrides, permanent cuts in fire and police, and they will be back because we have no revenue stream. We know that. They said that. But listen, we always say that if we get a 70, 80, 90%, hopefully, unrealistically 100% turnout, then it will be the true voice of the people. Listen, we can have the Fall River that we want, that the majority of people want, not the minority. If the majority of people vote, when the majority of people don't vote, they now say we don't care, or we think there's nothing we can do, and that's bullshit. But the reality is, listen, we've seen politics change in Fall River and throughout the country. They don't even run anymore on issues. They don't say anything. There's two ways to run: on one issue or on no issues. Just don't talk about anything. The Joe Biden method: nothing. Can't run on your record like Coogan couldn't run on his record. Keep your mouth shut, hide in the basement, throw out all these lies that, oh, the border's closed, the economy's great, even though almost 3/4 of the population, 2/3 of the population are living paycheck to paycheck. There's a massive nationwide affordable housing shortage, all kinds of crime, and they just deny it, and all these, and they deny it and they get in. And of course now we know about election integrity. In Connecticut, they overturned the primary election. They had a city worker being videoed stuffing ballot boxes, and both sides were stuffing the ballot boxes with these absentee ballots. So the integrity of the system is gone. The people don't vote anymore. You run on one issue. Look at Virginia. Virginia got pissed off about the schools. The parents got upset, and they threw in Youngkin, and they got a conservative house, and they thought the tide had turned, just like when we did the recall. But then people go back into their cocoon. You've got to inflame them. You've got to get them to the polls, and that's not. Look what happened last night. They flipped it back. Now the Democrats have taken back the House, and they kept control of the Senate. Why? One issue: abortion. That's what they do. They forget about the rest of it. Forget about the fact they're destroying your life with their spending. Forget about the fact that they've destroyed the country. We're in 2 proxy wars. We've got millions of people coming across the border. It's a total disaster. But they just say, don't believe your lying eyes, shut up. We're telling you everything's wonderful. It's just like Paul. Everything's beautiful. We're moving Fall River forward. For who? For the people that were standing behind you, Paul. For the people who you gave all those big pay raises to. And those people, and I'm not blaming them, because they got a tremendous self-interest in this. They all got out and voted. And all the people who are going to bitch now didn't. And it's not that hard to vote anymore. I mean, you can get an absentee ballot. I mean, not that I'm a big fan of that stuff now, because there's so much voter fraud going out throughout the country. It's incredible. I mean, they got this one, and not only, and the sad fact was that not only this individual is she charged with election tampering, and she's a city employee for the mayor. And they showed her walking out of her post at the city hall, walking out and stuffing ballot boxes and walking back into City Hall in Connecticut. But she did it in the previous election, and those charges are still pending. Why? Because there's never any accountability when the people who are in power get caught. And that's what's happening now. So there's only one, look, we're going to sit here, we can go over the numbers, we can, the bottom line is, Teddy Roosevelt said it in his speech. He said, the Roman Empire began its decline when the Roman citizens stopped voting and let their politicians run Rome. And that was the beginning of the end of the empire. And until we begin to exercise our right to vote, and I hope all the people who run in 2 years do it the right way, because I'm telling you right now, this country will not change. It's going down the toilet, and this city's going down. And the difference is, when this country gets a cold, Fall River gets pneumonia. And there's nothing you can say positive about this election, except Michelle Dion got in, because she's the only one that truly represents the people. There's nothing about this. When we have, on the South End, I got a call from someone that voted in the early evening, not late evening, or about 5 o'clock, I'd say, between 5 and 5:30, I believe, he told me. And he said the turnout in 3B was 206 votes or something like that. You know how big that ward is? That was, and I did the math, it was like 4%. 4% of the registered voters. 96% of the people hadn't gotten to the polls at 5 o'clock at night. That is just disgraceful. And, it's on all of them. And like it's on those politicians, because you know something? Most people, unfortunately, are misinformed and lazy, and they try to look for an excuse. Oh, there's nothing I can do. Well, if 44,000 of you came out to vote, I can guarantee you this election would have been different. So I don't know, I don't know what you got to do. We did it once, and if we're going to do anything again, I can tell you one thing: we'll do it the same way. We'll be knocking on the Portuguese community's door, telling them what they're doing to them. We'll be knocking on the taxpayers' door and telling them what they're doing to them. And we'll stay on them, and we'll either get them so enthusiastic they'll go vote, or we'll aggravate them so much that they'll vote just to get rid of us. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys. You're muted, CJ. You're muted.
I'm sorry. As I said, we've been having a regular problem with somebody by the name of Aaron All-Nighter. I have no problem calling him out. Okay? He's now going by the Fall River Experience. He goes by so many other different names. And he keeps saying that Jeffrey and I are friends with a sex offender. Okay? Let me make this one time and one time only statement, and for the record. When I am friend requested on Facebook, I don't do a background check into anybody. For the majority of them, I believe they're viewers of the show, and I accept them. Okay? Once I find out different, like I did with this particular individual, I unfriend them and I block them. Okay? Mr. All-Nighter, if you want to continue with the harassment and the bullying, that's fine. That's your choice. But don't be upset when you get thrown into Facebook jail, or worse, have all your accounts deleted by Facebook, because that's where you're going. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to play any more games with it, and I'm not going to do this. All right? It's not worth the aggravation. So
yeah, I agree.
It's not worth the aggravation, and I wasn't going to give him any credibility this time, but his comment made it up on the screen by accident, and that's it. No more. No more. And that will be the last time his comments are on this screen, because I'm going to make sure that Facebook and YouTube block him off the system so he can't do this anymore. I mean, because if he's doing it to us, he's doing it to other people. But meanwhile, he doesn't go around talking about his conviction of being a domestic violence offender. So let's leave it at that. I want to
Yep.
thank you all for watching, and I'm sorry for the distraction. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. After all, you elected them.
Yep.